good evening and welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live on news up here at Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're also streaming live on Facebook at 3FM927. You can log on to Facebook and share your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions. We are also live all across the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening, the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's last-ditched efforts to instill confidence in his cabinet greeted with skepticism amid these suggestions of latest ministerial reshuffle, the shake-up that's come too little, too late in the day. We have all the analysis and the reactions for you from some of the notable voices in governance in this country here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Plus, you as well, share your thoughts with us about this ministerial reshuffle that's been announced earlier today by President Akufo-Addo, and we want to also get some information as to how Parliament intends to go about the vetting of these persons, taking into consideration the new standing orders of Parliament. Also, the NDC, meanwhile, has launched a scathing attack on Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, describing him as lacking ideas and credibility and only copying former President and flag bearer of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama's policies. Also, Office of Special Prosecutor directs the release of salaries for 902 out of the over 1,000 teachers whose salaries were withheld. We'll give you details of this later directive from the Special Prosecutor's Office. And also give you an update on the Save Ghana football demonstration that took place earlier today with the protesters chasing the GFA and the sports ministry officials away when they turned up to take their petition. We have details of that, plus the latest in business, sports and entertainment over the last 60 at least minutes we've gone by. The Ghana Water Company has also announced a 48-hour disruption in water supply in Somanya and its environs. We'll tell you about it shortly, and matters arising here on Hot Edition. Let's get into the details now. The much anticipated ministerial reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo has been greeted with skepticism and doubts amid suggestions it has come too late in the day to make any meaningful impact on the country's economic fortunes. For several months, the Akufo-Addo-led administration had been under pressure to shake up the cabinet and indeed the ministerial portfolio of his government to inject some impetus, new ideas and energy, and also bolster confidence in Ghana's ailing economy. Many Ghanaians had demanded the dismissal of some ministers, particularly the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. The NPP members, if you recall, members of Parliament, called for the head of Ken Ofori-Atta, about 98 of them, but eventually became the entire majority caucus the position that they took, that Ken Ofori-Atta should be sacked. Now, many of them argued that he was partly responsible for the economic meltdown and the crisis that Ghana had been plunged into, requiring an emergency International Monetary Fund bailout. 2 years down the line, the president has now announced a change, with the finance minister becoming the biggest casualty, at least from what we do know now, because we're hearing of some news that may point to the contrary. Also axed from the cabinet is a health minister, Kukwajima Menu, and Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Minister for Local Government and Rural Development. Now, we're going to run through the ministerial list as we do have it. If you go on our Facebook page at 3FM927, you see the full details as we put in there on 3FM927, and also go there right now, share your thoughts, views, comments and opinions with us and the many people, the new faces that are coming through as we speak. But let's get a few thoughts on this, because the reshuffle has generated some mixed reactions. A former United Nations senior advisor on governance, Professor Bafwa Jimendia, believes the action should have been taken much earlier. He says it will not make any difference, especially coming barely 10 months to the general election. Yes, Professor Bafwa Jimendia earlier today.
You see, there was a time that the whole nation was ready for a change, and yet the president was a bit impervious to public sentiments and therefore was not responsive to that. We have barely 10 months to go for the end of this government. And I'm sure by June, in 4 months, the campaign for the presidency and parliamentarians will be in full swing. So those who have just been appointed, if they are competing to return to parliament, for instance, I'm not sure they will even have time to concentrate on the new assignments that they have been given. And even if they are not running for office, I'm not sure they have time to think and renovate or innovate the ministries that is being entrusted to them. So this exercise, though, has been long in coming. I don't think it's not going to make any positive impact on a new direction for government. As you rightly said, the whole idea of reshuffle is to increase the performance level of government. For instance, if there are certain ministers who are not pulling their weight and some are not performing so well, or they are sick or whatever, you take advantage of a reshuffle to bring in the fresh blood that you referred to. And the whole idea is to revitalize government. Now, at this time of the day, when you have 8 years to rule and you have barely 10 months to go, these changes lose their significance. That's what I'm saying. With the upcoming election, I'm not sure even if there are fresh blood in this. By the way, I don't even see any fresh blood. The same old people that have been, like a typical reshuffle, they change chairs if you have been dropped, and those who are brought in are all old hands. So in that respect, I'm not sure of what new ideas they are coming to do your work with. So I think it's good. The only good thing I can say is that at least it puts on record that President Akufo-Addo did reshuffle his government. Otherwise, he would have gone out of office as perhaps the only government that didn't do any serious reshuffle.
Oh, that's Professor Bafo Agyemendua there. Let's go on to the telephone. A number of people joining us on this development with the reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo. And Joe Jassing is a financial analyst. He's joining us for a conversation on this. Mr. Jassing, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening, and it's good to talk to you.
As always. Now, would you also go on the same path, sing the same chorus, too little, too late, this reshuffle?
Is there any other chorus available? Is there any other option available but to say that this has happened so far late in the narration that it does not move the dial? At this moment, people have made up their minds. They have made up their mind that the president will resist any attempt to get him to move. At this moment, it's what, like our commentators have said, it's what, less than 10 months to the election date. It's definitely too little, too late. In fact, some of us may even go as far as to say that it may even, in certain instances, become detrimental to the performance of the various ministries. Because where there is a change and there has to be a handover, 10 months to time, how long are you giving this new minister time to get vetted? How long are you giving him time to get the handover done before any impact can be made in an election year where we can strictly write off the last quarter as being used for electioneering activities? I will dare say that this is an election shuffle.
An election shuffle?
Yes, it is an election shuffle. It is like, you know what the footballers do? They do a few Ronaldo step overs. This is a step over, right? If the good defenders who have their eye on the ball, they keep their eye on the ball and they don't see this. They don't see the step over as changing anything. This is what I would call an election shuffle.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. You could just conclude on that point.
My point is that it is an election shuffle. The point of this election is the point of this shuffle is to bolster the election credentials, not to give us enhanced performance. And that if you look at it strictly, it may even, for some ministries, detract from performance, since somebody has to go for vetting, get approved, get handed over in less than 10 months. When is the impact going to be felt? And what kind of impact are we expecting from this?
There was a point that Ken Ofori-Atta's sacking, from the analysis of you, the financial analyst, was going to send a positive signal of confidence to especially the external investors, the external community, who, as a result of this domestic debt exchange program, which is as a result of the government overborrowing, have lost so much. That period, that decision of sacking Ken Ofori-Atta did not happen. Now, his portfolio has been changed. How much of an impact will this have in terms of the signaling to the financial community about some positive resonance, for that matter?
Listen, no one can argue about the credentials of Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. First-class economist with all the right credentials, and even dare say, having worked for some of the institutions that ordinarily should give us hope that he's going to come in with a perspective of looking out for the vulnerable and the what do you call it? For the vulnerable and the disadvantaged of society. He's done work for Oxfam. He's done work for DFID, USAID, and I could go on and on and on. Listen, and his credentials are first class. And so ordinarily, the market should be jumping up and down that there's somebody who's going to come up. The ordinary man should be jumping up and down. There's somebody who can see things from his perspective. He was founder of ISEP, founder of ISET. Listen, he comes with the right credentials. But hasn't the horse bolted already? Is the door of the barn being closed after the horse has bolted and has run off?
Now,
if he had been appointed a year ago, there would definitely have been a big bounce. Now, I don't know. There should be a little bounce, but how much will it move the needle? There's so little time for him to make an independent impact. Does he have the previous Minister of Finance looking over his shoulder? Will the previous Minister of Finance have some senior advisory position and still be able to influence things? At this moment, we don't know. And I hope that will not happen, that the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta will step aside and allow Dr. Adam to do his work.
Well, what you are hoping will not happen is being reported that it may have happened, even though we are still doing our own independent checks, because there's a report that's making the rounds that the former finance minister we're talking about now, Ken Ofori-Atta, is to be appointed as the senior presidential advisor on the economy. Now, if this is true, based on the job description of this new portfolio, if so confirmed, he's going to have a lot more executive power, even beyond that of the finance minister. Is that worrying to you?
It is worrying. If this shuffle and the appointment of Dr. Adam is being done to reassure the local market, is being done to reassure the foreign market, appointing the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta in some oversight position will not help. Then we will not get the bounce required. Then Dr. Adam will not be seen as independent, and his impact and expectation may be greatly reduced. If I was advising Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, I would tell him, turn down that appointment. Don't take that temptation. If you've done your bit, step aside. Let some new ideas flow, even if it is for the shortest of times.
But well, you know that's not going to happen. I mean, from what we understand, it appears he's agreed to this particular new portfolio.
I sincerely hope not. I really sincerely hope not. Because the only hope we have of this giving us some advantage, however late in the day, will be for Dr. Adam to be seen as clearly independent and perhaps signaling a change of direction from high indirect taxes, from high interest rates, from all the other. Look at what is happening to the CD. The CD is inching up by the day. Inflation has stopped this downward trend and has actually gone up. So there are major challenges. And I just hope that Dr. Adam will come and be seen as independent enough for all of us to be able to get behind him to change the trajectory of things at the moment.
But for you conclude that Kenneth Rata's sacking, at least at this time, is not going to send any significant positive signal to the market, as would have been the case if this was done maybe a year or two ago.
In the day. But if there's any benefit, it will require that Honorable Kenneth Rata does not take any oversight position.
You should just stay away.
I think so.
Mr. Jackson, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too.
Joe Jackson is Chief Operations Officer of Dalex Finance, joining us with his thoughts on this matter. He's a financial analyst. Now, if you recall, the call for Kenneth Rata to be sacked reached the crescendo about a little over a year ago. In fact, that led to some NPP MPs leading the charge at the press conference to have him sacked. The president did not do that. The president assured these NPP MPs that if Kenneth Rata was able to get an IMF program, after that he was going to be sacked and so on. Well, we got the IMF program almost 7 to 8 months ago. And over the period, the conversation has been whether or not this was going to happen. Well, guess what? Over the period, that demand that was made was not heeded to, because the president said he does an assessment of his appointees on a daily basis. And so if there has to be any decision for a reshuffle, he'll be better placed to do that. It's been 7 years and some months. The president is now taking this decision of a reshuffle. But as many have said, this is too little, too late. A number of people have been sharing their thoughts. For you, the general public on the streets of Accra, this is what you had to say.
The government doing few changes, reshuffling the ministers, still boiled up the same thing. Changing the ministers will not help Ghana this moment. We have barely 10 months to go. And then when we treat our local commodities, foreign investors will come after that.
To the election before the president. Because this thing has to be done long time ago. Not to this time that they are about to be elected, that the president has to be doing this. But all the same, let's want the output.
But this reshuffling comes in like barely just a few months to election. What do you think? Do you think it's will be able to do the work?
You're putting me at the corner. You know, politics comes with a lot of things. It can be a political strategy, it can be anything. So I just leave it to them. For a few years, we are just fed up already with the way politics is going on in Ghana. So I think it's a final decision from me. I'm okay. We are still there. We are just coping whatever comes.
Oh, this will go come. I think they are coming to do some work for us. And we'll do.
Well, so these were some persons on the streets of Accra, but also in Kumasi, that's the stronghold of the NPP. My colleague William Evansinkum interacted with some persons who shared their thoughts about this reshuffle.
When I see people who are not coming to effect any change and are going to help establish the status quo, what it means that the change that the Ghanaians are yearning for, which the NDC is driving at, is going to come to effect. And that's what I'm excited about. I don't see them as the quality of personnel coming to government, most of them very weak, especially for specific positions. It's very, 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 very weak.
So I'm very happy about the fact that they have changed the finance minister, because Ghanaians were complaining and were really suffering, and they were hoping for him to be changed, and the president has done that, so I'm happy that.
Some of them have been in office and they have been, they've relaxed to some extent. Looking at the finance minister, I think the finance minister has been at the office and Ghanaians have been calling on the president to make those changes. It's a good call and it's a good move from the president. My only concern is that the time that the president has spent wasting our resources and sitting at the office, letting some of these MPs and ministers, working out of their relaxed situation. They've wasted our resources though, but I think that is a good thing from the president.
Well, so these are some persons on the streets of Kumasi in the Ashanti region sharing their thoughts on the reshuffle by President Kufuor. Clearly, the biggest highlight of this reshuffle is Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, we're monitoring quite closely the news we're hearing of another appointment that has been given to him, which gives him more powers than he even wielded as finance minister. But one person who led a group of NPP MPs in parliament to ask the president to sack Ken Ofori-Atta almost 2 years ago. Now he's joining us on the telephone. The Honorable Andy Appiah-Kobe, the Member of Parliament for the Asante-Akyem North constituency, and is joining us. Honorable, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Yes, good evening, my brother. This special day and this special event and the messages of the day.
Today is a special day for you.
Oh, a special day for all of us.
Why is that?
Is it not a day for lovers?
And your wish has come to pass as well.
Oh, well, that's tangential to the main issue of celebrating the Day of Love.
And this is a good coincidence for you, isn't it?
Well, however you treat it, let's take it as that.
But this is a call that you made almost 2 years ago to the president.
Yes. You see, sometimes when you make a call, it is subject to circumstances of the time. Well, it's come a little late, but it's better late than never. Because at the time that we made a call, we were told that the impact would have been much greater than it would be now. But be it as it has been, it's better than not even happening at all. So we think that it's a call that has come a little late, but better if it didn't come at all.
Well, they'd also make the argument, you say better late than never. Others say too little, too late. Many people who have reacted to this say this is too little, too late. It's not going to have any significant impact.
Well, for me, it would have been better if we had been ahead too earlier. But like I'm saying, if it didn't happen at all, we will have something to say. But now that it has happened, we will just take it as it is and say thank you to President for listening to us.
Well, but if you do hear after now that there's another formal announcement of Ken Ofori-Atta being appointed to another portfolio, what would your reaction be?
Indeed, it's a prerogative of the President to appoint persons to positions depending upon his vision and the strategy of achieving the vision. So I'll give that to him. He has the constitutional mandate to do what he has done. But we were complaining of the performance in the finance ministry. And we thought that if he wasn't the finance minister, we would perform better. So if he has listened to us and transferred him from one office where we thought that he needed a transfer, I'll take it as it is. But we did not say that the operator should not be given any opportunity to work in government at all. We were saying that we thought if he wasn't the finance minister, our situation would be better.
But you're a politician and a lawyer for that matter, very vexed in governance. You know that optics is everything in politics and governance. If the finance minister was removed based on your own concerns that you raised, that yes, the sentiments about him being at the helm of affairs at the finance ministry was not good for the country, reason why you led a press conference to have him removed. After 2 years, that has been granted you. Now he's going to be giving, that is from the information we're gathering, not confirmed yet, a portfolio that gives him more executive powers even than the finance ministry. That should worry you, is it not?
Well, I have not heard also what you are talking about. But it is a position that will be superior to the finance ministry. I will be worried, but I'm not sure that will be the case. The finance ministry, as I have seen it, has always worked independently of other ministries, save that there's collaboration between them, not that finance ministry is subservient to any other ministry. So I am even not too sure whether there will be another portfolio that will be bigger than the portfolio of the finance minister, and that the finance minister will submit to that newly created portfolio. I don't believe that. But if it happens like that, then it will be unfortunate.
But even if he's in a portfolio, occupying a portfolio that is closer to or will still require him working in collaboration with the current minister or the minister so announced today, talking about Mohammed Amin Adam, to financial analyst Joe Jackson that I just spoke to, that is equally worrying because he's still going to still find his shadows over and around the man who was working under him.
Yes, it depends, but if he's going to work in collaboration with the finance minister, I wouldn't see too much of a problem because the position of finance minister requires that you work with other cabinet ministers. So if this new position that you perceive is going to have to work in collaboration with the finance ministry, I wouldn't think it will be anything different from the normal. So as long as the finance minister is not subjugated to the new portfolio, I wouldn't have any problem because collaboration is what we do between ministries. So unless it becomes clear that the finance minister will have to work under the new portfolio, then I will have problems.
I thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, as always.
Thank you too, my brother.
Andy Apiakubi is Member of Parliament for the Asante Achim North constituency. He is one of the ringleaders of the 98 NPP MPs who, if you recall, almost 2 years ago addressed the press at an unprecedented press conference demanding that the president sacks the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, at the time when the economic quagmire that we find ourselves in now was at its height at the time. That moment, the president did not heed to that call. He indicated that the finance minister was doing a good job, and he gave timelines for the fulfillment of this demand that these NPP MPs made, that the finance minister should get an IMF program, get it executed. Well, it's been so many months after the IMF program was approved, but here we are now. The many people who say that this reshuffle came in too little too late. If you go on our Facebook page right now at 3FM927, we're showing you videos of the finance minister, if you recall, when he presented the budget in November 2023, that was last year. After that presentation of the budget, he was giving a hero's welcome when he arrived at the office with some civil servants who are not supposed to even declare or as it were engage in any form of endorsement, being asked to line up to welcome him, and that generated some concern as well for the many people who are watching quite closely. But as we speak, he's not going to be at the finance ministry, but there's some reports going round or making the rounds that Ken Ofori-Atta is going to be appointed as a senior presidential advisor on the economy. He will also serve as the president's special envoy on international investment and the capital markets. Now, bear in mind that the reason why a number of these NPP MPs, plus some economists, believed at the time Ken Ofori-Atta should have been sacked earlier, was the negative sentiments that his continuous stay in office was sending to the international market. The Eurobond holders, the external creditors, were all making complaints as we speak. A number of them have had to lose their investments as a result of this external debt and the domestic debt exchange program that we have been on as a result of our debts going beyond sustainable levels, which led us to go into the IMF program. So this is the situation that we're finding ourselves in now. The minority in Parliament have also been talking about this reshuffle. Take a listen.
All deputy ministers and ministers who lost their parliamentary primaries have been removed. Those who are no longer contesting, there are some who didn't lose primary, but they are no longer contesting, have all been removed. It tells you clearly, this appointment has nothing to do with salvaging the mess that is created by the inept and the incompetence. The appointment has to do with elections 2024. If you check my senior brother, and who is my teacher, Dr. Amin Anta, who happened to be the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, and who is now, elevated to a substantive minister. I am picking information that the current Minister for Finance is going to be made a senior advisor on economy at the Ministry of Finance. So what it means is that Dr. Amin Anta will be reporting to him. So if that is the case, then this must be described as nothing but cartoon scenario reality. Those who have been appointed are going to work barely 3-4 months. Because look, the appointment, the Speaker announced it. It has been referred to the appropriate committee, in this case, appointment committee. The appointment committee certainly cannot state next week. They would have to gather information, those who are going to be petitioned against a whole lot of. It will take more than a month, or at least a month, for the vetting to be done. So if you take vetting and approval, that will take almost 2 months. So we are in what? February, right? March, April. So it means that even if they expedite action with a speed of light, it will take them the next 2 months to have these ministers, vetted and approved. So if it is going to be March, April, now April, May, June, July, August, some of them will need about 2 months, 3 months to be able to appreciate the workings of the ministry. And by the next 4 or 5 months, we are getting into campaign. So it is much ado about nothing. Sure.
Well, that's Member of Parliament for the Tamale Central Constituency, Mohammed Murtala Ibrahim, there, giving the analysis as to why this reshuffle at this time, 10 months to election, is not going to have any significant impact. And Dr. Jonathan Asante-Okyere is a political analyst and a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, is joining us. Dr. Asante-Okyere, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Good evening, my brother Alfred.
Great to have you as always. So, if this is an election strategy, as the likes of Murtala Mohammed and many have suggested, is it going to work? Is it going to make any significant positive impact for the MPP's fortunes?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good evening once again to you, yourself, and then your listeners. I will start by saying that if it is more of an electoral strategy, I think that is not going to work. But I also see that there is a lacuna. You see, there's a lacuna in that kind of argument that it is geared towards electoral, victory or electoral purpose. Yes, partially it is, especially those who might have lost, the primaries, and then all those people have been moved, or they've been shipped out of the government. And then, new faces being appointed, because obviously then they will have to be in the fray to be able to do their campaign. But that probably is at the parliamentary level. What about the presidential? I think that if you look at the reshuffling that has been done, it does not situate in any proper theoretical or practical or governance framework. Now, why am I saying so? You cannot remove, and the most important portfolio as of now is the finance ministry. You cannot remove Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta and bring in Dr. Amin Anta when they are all part of the mess that has been created for all of us. Now, if you look at the speech of Dr. Bawumia, and you look at a situation where he's suggesting to all of us that when he is given the opportunity to run the affairs of this country, there are certain taxes that he will have to remove. Here is the case, those who have been part of that creation are still at the helm of affairs. So in what theoretical framework is the president doing this kind of reshuffling? It does not in any way inure to the benefit of Dr. Bawumia. The other thing too is that it makes Dr. Bawumia looks like someone who is not on top of his brief. That is one, and two, the idea of believability and trustworthiness becomes even worsened. It is worsened in the sense that if the president had gone for somebody like Dr. Marcus B, who in the public domain has put out there that the state of the free SHS as it stands now ought to be reviewed. Now, that is the kind of independent-minded member of the party who has that financial background that could easily fit that particular portfolio. If indeed the president wanted to let Dr. Bawumia have that credibility that is lost, the trustworthiness that is lost, the goodwill of Ghanaians that all of them have lost, so that that particular person will have started by putting in place this view of Dr. Bawumia that if annually is able to gain about 3% physical space, then taxes like the e-levy, the what's it called, emission levy, VAT on the electricity, all these things could easily have been erased or taken off the books once you create a physical space. So you don't need to bring someone who will not bring any change. That aside, the president missed the plot. And for me, it does not inure to the benefit of Dr. Bawumia in terms of electoral, advantage. At this point in time, when people have complained bitterly about the expenditure of government, you are the IMF. Is it not prudent that if you've had the opportunity of doing a reshuffling, you rather go on a tangent of fusing some of the ministries and collapsing some, putting them under some agencies here and there, so that you can save, that you can reduce government expenditure? You have lost the plot at this point in time. So no matter what Dr. Bawumia says, nobody will believe him. That, for me, is something that the president and his team lost. And it does not. Maybe you can argue from the parliamentary point of view, but that one, it is even far-fetched. But if you look at the presidential, architecture and how they intend to prosecute that agenda of breaking the eight, I don't see that it fits in a particular framework as the president has done. It does not.
I do appreciate your analysis on this, as always. And we'll continue this conversation subsequently. You know that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's Dr. Jonathan Asantiochi. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast and a political analyst, joining us with his thoughts on this matter. Well, guess what? The NDC, as the National Democratic Congress, has launched some analysis and also reactions on the Vice President, Mahamudu Bawumia's speech, describing him as lacking ideas, but only copying what the former president, John Mahama, had previously put out, citing a number of ministers and deputies. The NDC scribe, Fifi Kwete, said because former president John Mahama promised to cut his minister's size to 60, the vice president, the flag bearer of the NPP, said he will do not more than 50. The General Secretary was speaking at a media briefing hours ago.
Gentlemen, I submit to you that long before the NPP flag bearer began thinking about the future, John Mahama had already thoughts. Hence, no amount of political chicanery can save the NPP come December 7, 2024. Mr. Mahama has also in the past assured Ghanaians that he will initiate and undertake the most far-reaching constitutional, political, and governance reforms to restore confidence in our democracy, in addition to abolishing the payment of ex gratia to members of the executive under Article 71, and persuading other arms of government to accept same. Let us face the truth. The NPP promised heaven while Ghana was on earth under Mahama, and has ended up delivering hell to every Ghanaian except their close families and friends. And so how can you trust the NPP going forward? I mean, how? Can you trust a party that sharply criticized and condemned when the dollar was 3.9 Ghana cedis and is now busily serving you with an exchange rate of $1 to 12.6 cedis, pushing towards 13 cedis. Ladies and gentlemen, with the round condemnation and disappointing reception Bawumia's speech has received, both in traditional and social media, we would have ordinarily let Ghanaians stick to their own negative verdicts on the Vice President's address. However, because he peddled many lies, we are duty-bound to set the record straight.
That's Fifi quoted there. And the NDC has described the recent reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo as scottly, and he says reflecting of a government in disarray, obstinately disconnected from the realities of the people on the ground. According to the NDC, the reshuffle is far from being a strategic realignment in government. He says it's merely a superficial rearrangement of pieces on a board with no real intent to address the systemic problems and failures that the government is faced with.
Gentlemen of the press, just before this presser, news of a supposed government reshuffle came in. And we must say that we are once again highly disappointed in this government. Even though disappointment in this government has become the norm, we were at least expecting some level of change amidst Dr. Bawumia's promise to govern Ghana with only 50 ministers. But what do we see? A continuation of the status quo that has plagued our nation's progress. In an era where the clamor for efficient governance and fiscal prudence has never been louder, the recent reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo starkly reflects a government in disarray, obstinately disconnected from the realities of his people. Despite the vociferous appeals from Ghanaians, civil society, the clergy, academics, and think tanks to trim the bloated size of government, a glaring drain on our nation's scarce resources, this administration has once again turned a deaf ear. And remember, the Vice President of this Republic continues to be Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And clearly he's aware of what is going on. If 50 is worth doing, then 50 should as well be done now to let the people of Ghana know you mean it. But clearly, it does not mean it. Now, the insistence on maintaining a government apparatus comprising so many ministers is not only a slap in the face of the Ghanaian taxpayer, but is testament to an entrenched culture of profligacy, cronyism, and a disturbing myopic view of governance. This unwieldy government size, under the guise of facilitating development, has instead catalyzed an era marked by inefficiency and unfulfilled promises. Enter Dr. Bawumia, the Vice President, and the freshly minted flag bearer of the NPP, who now promises a government of only 50 ministers. This place starkly contrasts the current administration's excesses and rings hollow in the face of his long-standing defense of this government bloat. Dr. Bawumia's sudden pivot amidst the economic turmoil our nation endures is emblematic of a desperate ploy for votes, a deception that the Ghanaian people can see through with clarity. Today's reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo, rather than offering a beacon of hope for a leaner, more efficient government, has instead upheld the status quo.
That's Fifi Kwete, the General Secretary of the NDC. Also live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We are live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. The Office of Special Prosecutor has directed the release of salaries for 902 out of 1,310 teachers, which were blocked last week. The OSP blocked their salaries after identifying infractions and subsequently commencing investigations into the matter. This angered the leadership of the teacher unions, who asked the special prosecutor to direct the release of the salaries or face their wrath. The unions in education, that's the Ghana National Association of Teachers, National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers, CCT, at a news conference on February 14, that's today, described the special prosecutor's attitude as lawless. They have given him 72 hours to get the rest of the salaries of the teachers released or face agitations from next week.
Get some kind of adverse findings you have to let the person being audited to know that these are the queries who are fine for the person to answer, provide documents to protect himself or otherwise. But you do not go and audit somebody, and the person is unaware that he or she is being audited, and then you raise your own report. The person being audited is unaware that some audit has gone on, some report has been raised. Then you use that report and send it to various banks for people's salaries to be blocked. We have never seen that kind of audit in the public service or the Ghana Education Service. In the public service, when they do the audit, if Auditor General, for example, does payroll audit, or Fair Wages does payroll audit, sometimes even BNI does payroll audit, whatever thing they found, they forward it to the employer. It is the employer that will effect that report. But before they will even forward it to the employer, the people that were audited were aware that they were being audited.
That's the Coalition of Concerned Teachers talking. So we'll see how things play out in the next 72 hours that the OSP has been giving to get the rest of the salaries of the teachers released or face agitation from the teacher unions beginning next week. Well, earlier today, let's get into issues with sports. The Save Ghana football demonstration took place, and the thousands of protesters and football lovers hit the streets of Accra, including my colleague Bill Eshen, who was not there, not only for the demonstration. You took part in the demonstration? Or you were there to do your job as a journalist?
Yeah, I mean, I had to be as neutral as possible. But to me personally, was exciting to see that a lot of people gathered on a working day like this, a Wednesday, to actually speak out on the declining state of Ghana football. It was something they started at Obra Sport at 9 a.m. This morning, and they went to the Independence Square, where the leaders of these protesters actually gathered with them and spoke to them. One main leader of that group, Sadiq Adams, who's also a journalist, a well-documented football journalist here in Ghana, mentioned that there's a petition that is being, submitted, and listed some of the things that he wants to be addressed in that petition.
Abai, we want you to dissolve the management committee. We want the government to be sure. They want the interest of Ghana football. We want Omunya part of football. You can't bring your friends to come and take 100,000 and travel free. We don't want management committees for our national teams again. We have proposed what they need to do in the petition. Number 4, we want to insist that the committee looking for the next Black Stars coach, they should disband it now.
Yeah, so I mean,
I could hear the more fire.
The more fire from countryman Sungo, the fireman of this nation. Yeah, I mean, so there was a petition that was created, and that petition has been submitted to Parliament. But one thing that really stood out for me personally was after Sadiq spoke and then the protesters waited for a while, the GFA, some members of the GFA came, to the grounds, the Independence Square, to, I believe, receive the petition and talk to the people. But when the people saw them, they had a very, very nasty reaction. They were really incited by their faces, and this was how they showed how angry they are at the GFA.
Well, let's put the record straight. This is Ket Must Go.
Yes.
It sounded like Ken Must Go.
No. Ken
has gone already. So it is Ket
must go.
After Ken Oforiatta.
Yes, Ket Okreku must go. That is the main message. And you heard before, they were calling these GFA officials thieves in tree. in Chi. And that
so incensed,
that wasn't the only thing they did. Actually, when the GFA members saw that, I mean, the crowd wasn't happy with them and they turned to leave, some members of the crowd actually poured water on them, and also some threw cans of energy drinks at them as well, just to show how incensed they were. And when they were about, moving out with the car they came in, one particular person went right in front of the car, put his body on the ground and said, "I am not moving. If you like, run over me with the car. I am not moving. You guys are not going anywhere."
That's the height of the frustration that the Ghanaian people have had to be dealing with all this while.
Yeah, and then
heartbreak is just too much.
Very, very, very. I mean, we've seen the Black Stars get off the AFCON group stage for the first time back to back. It's never happened before, and we've seen that in 2021 and 2023. And so I think it's something that, the fans and the journalists started seeing that, hey, we've gotten to a point where if this is not checked and the right things aren't done, we could get to a particular point where we cannot get out of. And I spoke to, a few fans who made me know exactly why they came to the protest and how they've been feeling about the situation in Ghana football.
I am extremely excited about the turnout today. Our Ghanaians have proven that they indeed love their football, love their sports. And these are organic people. We didn't bust anybody, we didn't promise food, any transportation, but they are here. I know there are millions of people out there who couldn't be here because obviously a working day. But even with the numbers that turn out today, we are extremely happy. We've made a strong statement, we've made a strong point that we still love our football. And we are ready to help the people in power, people in positions of trust, to fix the game.
Bill, appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you as well.
We'll see how things play out. But a number of you watching us on Facebook been sharing your thoughts with us in the messages. Amankwayal says it's true. Keto Kriko and his football people, you say, are crooks, you say.
Yeah.
That's reflects.
There's an actual placard saying Kurt has been hiring his cronies. No more cronies.
James Nabat says, Alfred, watching from Mumbai. Doing a good job for Mother Ghana. Augustine Kamara says Koneforiata can now strategize and you say get Ghana to exit from its safe haven. And the boss says the waste is just too much. You're talking about the reshuffle amount is arising. David Sichi says no amount of reshuffle would change anything. You say thank you very much. And many of you sending us your thoughts on Facebook at 3FM927. We do appreciate your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions. Let's get into business now after this quick break with Michael Obodu.
Experience. Send your FBI no. Few study a basso. Nas wedi a sonko kwa. Dan enjoyment every experience I say in firma kuma kuduni. When you know the dean of the law. Ya tunsa from BBA samra number kaya ho. Ewo ICGC Christ Temple East Seshi Kra. Adakosia 18 February 2024. And men on a coping set. Ya the experience nina baby. Ya the onyakuba ye na sida and the tontum memano. Na ho anobehwe osunsha. Ego BBA big media CB. Wa brother and Jameton. And then you to form to say. Daughters of Glorious Jesus. Mercy Chinwo. And ya for account bebre. Tickets in here 100 Ghana City standard. Double 180 Ghana cities. Near 200 Ghana cities. And a family of 5 air 400 Ghana cities. When you ticket to be at our Bachona Tota, Hacho, Cantonment, Dansuma, Tema, Committee 8 and 11, Shell Filling Station, but star 725 star 8080 hash. Upemucha Chimbia Frame. I was 0546 907473. I work me now what and media casing in SU Naso. Powered by Enterprise Line. I work for Nibisini, just one group of companies, Fuel Insurance Brokers and Property Electronics. And the Afufropia our Kahun is the dean of the Lord Ampa. This is the doing of the Lord.
Hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. Coming up, chances of further cut in Bank of Ghana's key lending rate reduced as inflation inches up marginally by 0.3%. The details of this and many more coming up shortly. I am Michael Lubadu. Please do stay. Thank you for staying with us. Into our top story. Ghana's inflation rate unexpectedly rose in January for the first time in 6 months to 23.5% from 23.2% in December. This reduces the chances of another policy rate cut next month. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana recently reduced its key lending rate to 29%, following a downward trend in inflation recorded last year. Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim is the government statistician, and he has been commenting on this fact.
In the month of January 2024, food contributed almost half of the overall rate of inflation, specifically 49.0% for the month of January 2024. This was distantly followed by housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels that had a share of 9.8%, clothing and footwear 7.7%, and the division that contributed the least was insurance and financial services that had a share of 0.1%. Given that the January 2024 rate of inflation is mainly driven by non-food inflation, we identified the top 5 items among the non-food inflation basket that contributed to the non-food inflation driving the January 2024 rate of inflation. Alcoholic beverages recorded the highest rate of inflation of 39.7%, followed by accommodation services 37.9%, electricity, gas, other fuels inflation of 35.9%, personal care 32.8%, and clothing 23.9%. Given the relatively higher weight of clothing, which is 6.3 relative to the other components, clothing contributed the most to the non-food inflation that we recorded for the month of January 2024.
So that was government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna-Enim speaking there. Now, away from that, the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, has expressed indifference towards the appointment of the finance minister, emphasizing their key focus on results rather than individual personalities. This follows the dismissal of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and several other ministers by the President. Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, has been named as Mr. Ofori-Atta's replacement. GUTA President Dr. Joseph Obeng welcomed the announcement, underscoring the organization's emphasis on performance.
For us, it's not about the personalities involved. For us, it's about how we drive the policies of the state to affect the people of Ghana. The policies, how things will be structured to be in favor of the business community. That's what matters most. So it's not about the personalities, really. But in any case, we welcome the person who is coming to take the seat. But all that we have to say is for him to drive it well for the benefit of the people of Ghana.
What are your key expectations of the new finance minister?
As he just assumed office, we have to have interaction with him to know his agenda or his vision or how he's going to drive the policies of the state before we can assess what he's bringing to bear. But you should know that they are all in one government, and then they drafted most of these policies together. But it's about how to drive the policies to make a success. That's what matters most for us, not the personalities involved.
Dr. Joseph Obeng is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA. Meanwhile, economist and dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, says the latest ministerial reshuffle will make no difference. According to him, Dr. Amin Adam's takeover as new finance minister is too little too late and will not have any impact on the economy. Take a listen.
Dr. Amin Anta has been part of the ministry for some time. He participated in the budgetary process. He also participated keenly in the IMF negotiation and further discussions. So this budget is what he's very familiar with. He has no authority to change anything in the budget. This is what the president believes in. The budget is largely the budget of the president, which the finance minister is allowed per the constitution to act on behalf of the president. Therefore, Dr. Amin coming does not change anything. He thinks like the finance minister. When I say that, it's not in a derogatory manner. What that means is that he was part of the process. So asking the finance minister to go for him to step in is just like continuation of what have been programmed already.
So that was the economist and Dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, bringing an end to the business segment here on Hot Edition and wrapping up the show for you. For more business stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please stay safe. For more business stories, please visit our website. It's 3news.com/business. Catch you same time tomorrow with Alfred Ocansey for more of Hot Edition. Good evening.